I would say you learn the most actually by the people that you surround yourself with. So learning from their experiences and coming forward with a curiosity mindset and a growth mindset. I think it's easy at some point. I've been in my career 25 years, and I think it's easy sometimes to just rely on your experience. But things have changed drastically over the last decade, let alone the last 25 years. So understanding how our culture is changing, how people are changing, how motivating factors are changing is also critical.
Welcome to You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. You are ambitious in life and in your career, but something is missing. You want to bring more of your passion to what you do. Because let's be honest, you pour a ton into your work, and it needs to mean more. I'm your host, Laura Eigel. I'm a mom, wife, PhD, coach, advocate, introvert, and indoor rowing fanatic. I'm passionate about living a life that's in line with my values. We'll give you the actionable tips and tools you need to lead with your values, make a difference, and have career success. The world needs more diversity and authenticity in the top jobs at organizations. Your leadership belongs there. You belong in the C-Suite. What gets you up in the morning? What drives your decisions? What do you stand for? No idea, not even sure where to start? I use my values to guide my life and career. It's the basis of how I've built boundaries for myself and stuck to them. Are you ready to dig into what matters to you? Go to thecatchgroup.com to download your free values worksheet. That's thecatchgroup.com to download your free values worksheet to get to your core values and take action on what matters most. Welcome to this week's episode of the You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. I'm excited to share my conversation with this week's guest, Gulé Sheikh. Gulé is a technologist and entrepreneur with successful exits. She's worked in finance and healthcare for 25 years and has focused on data-driven successful outcomes. Gulé started her career at EDS and Hewlett-Packard before starting her own company, attained VC funding, and successfully exited in 2019. She built the first proprietary algorithm in out-of-pocket medication cost at the point of care. She was voted the top telemedicine solution provider for 3 years straight and was interviewed by Melinda Gates. She has dedicated the last decade to delivering solutions that improve patient outcomes through technology. I reached out to Gulé to invite her on the podcast because I love to hear their career stories and experiences of other women leaders. In our conversation, we talked about just that, her career story, from going from corporate to entrepreneurship and now back to corporate. We talked about the skills and capabilities she developed over her pivotal career moments. Gulé shares the advice that she would have given herself earlier in career. Additionally, we talked about the benefits and drawbacks of entrepreneurship and corporate careers, specifically about building breadth across multiple disciplines like operations and marketing, and being able to go deeper as an expert. I know you'll get a ton from this conversation. Let's get started. Well, I want to welcome you to the You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today, Gulé.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, well, I'm just really happy to share this space with you. And I just want to learn more about you. And so can you tell us a bit more about growing up and career and whatever pivotal moments kind of you want to share in between?
Sure. I'm Canadian. I was born and raised in Ottawa, Ontario, and I moved to Toronto when I was 18 to go to school and went into computer programming and computer science. And that's really where my career took off. It was a pivotal point. It was in the 90s, and I started working for Ross Perot's company EDS in my early 20s. And I have a passion for technology, and I've kind of grown with the industry. Back then I was probably one of the few women that were really in the tech space, or at least that was visually in the tech space. So it's been an interesting growth. And fast forward, I worked in corporate for several years. And then in 2012, I started my own company, which was a healthcare software as a service company for providers and health systems, and raised capital, VC funding. One of my exciting moments was being interviewed by Melinda Gates and chatting with her about raising capital and some of the issues that people face in the US when it comes to healthcare and solving those problems.
Mhm.
And I sold the company in 2019. And since 2020, have been working for Salesforce. So I'm back in corporate again.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I am so excited to dig into a couple of more questions in terms of your career in corporate, building your company, and being back in corporate. What's it? Let's start there. Like, what's it like being back in corporate after leading your own company?
It's definitely an interesting perspective. I think even when I was in corporate in my 20s and 30s, I had an entrepreneurial mindset. And so I had the opportunity to be able to bring that to the table when I was in corporate. And so now coming back into corporate and actually being an entrepreneur and raising capital, I understand and appreciate the process a lot more. And I appreciate the partnerships that I have to collaborate with different groups when it comes to customers and partners and all that. So it's been interesting. I think I definitely think my perspective has changed vastly. I definitely appreciate the different roles that different people play now because I had to play all those roles at one point by myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, as you transitioned your career from corporate to leading your company, and now back to corporate, I'd love to hear just kind of some of those big transition moments. What were those like for you? Leaving corporate, building your own. Let's talk about that. How did you make that decision? What was going on at the time that kind of pushed you into that direction?
It was just opportunity at the time. I was working when I was in corporate, I was working in healthcare at one point, and I had moved to the US from Canada, and I just saw a lot of the problems in the US and just opportunities for solving those problems. And so, something came to the table where it was providers would have to electronically prescribe prescriptions, and New York at the time was the only state that had mandated that. And so we knew that other states were going to come into play and would be held accountable for that. So that became a really great opportunity. I saw that this is definitely the path forward, especially with telehealth rising as well. So I decided to focus on telehealth medicine and go for this opportunity and bring this forward to patients. And so with my Canadian, experience living through Canadian healthcare and now moving into the US, I also saw the problem around solving issues around price transparency and the cost of prescriptions. And so that became, a very deeply ingrained problem I really wanted to solve and help people with in the US. That was the push to start my own company.
And so as you saw that opportunity, saw the problem to solve, and started to build your own company, what were some of the things that you took from corporate that were helpful in your entrepreneurship journey? You had mentioned before that you were kind of already on an entrepreneurship mindset, kind of
Yeah.
passion. But what things from your corporate career did you bring? And then what things did you have to figure out?
So I think it was scoping out the issue itself and scoping out what the problem is and really honing in on how to solve that problem and then bringing that to market. So my background is in software development, and I had the software development side, but then I had the strategic side, and then I had the implementation side. So I had played several different roles in my career already, and it was the entrepreneurial side was really just bringing it all together. Now, what I had not done before was raise capital. So that was a big learning curve and understanding, the VC mindset and how investors think and what they look at when they're investing in other companies. So that was a big learning curve. Also, marketing from a marketing standpoint, understanding the nuances and the psychology of marketing and how to go after your customers and really grow your clientele. That was also very new to me, and then I had to kind of build on that as well. So so the corporate side was really, I think, software development, building up the software, understanding the scope of the problem, solving that problem, bringing it to market, and then learning as you were going on operations, marketing, financials, all that was completely new to me.
How many rounds of funding did you do?
So we did angel seed series A.
And what did you learn kind of as you got better at that, like over time, over those different series? What kinds of things did you pick up that you then were able to bring in to some of your leadership as you started then building that team to support the business?
Yeah. So, the angel funding and the seed funding was a bit simpler in that we were going after smaller investors, but also investors that had known us personally.
Mm.
So it was reputation and it was, selling on the idea and the solution. So there was trust that was built on that. And some of these investors were serial investors in that they put in small amounts of money in several different companies, so they knew what to look for, but in some cases they didn't, and it was complete trust. But by the time we got to series A, it became a lot more complex. Like the terms became a lot more complex. VCs, are a lot harder on exactly what they're investing in, and the outcomes are also a lot more complex. So there was, I would say, there was a huge discrepancy in terms of what we learned from seed until series A.
Yeah.
And, I read books and attended seminars and met with other investors and did informational interviews, and then, we practiced pitching, and it all comes down to numbers.
Mm.
It comes down to how good is your solution? What is the investor mindset in this current space right now? What are they interested in investing in? And then do your numbers match up and line up to a potential exit?
So after series A, what did that team look like at that point that you were leading? Said you were like doing lots of different hats. And then
Yeah.
what did that look like as you transitioned and started building that team and building that company? And what was that like for you as a leader? And I would imagine then letting go some of those things that you had done to
Yeah.
let other people do those.
Yeah, I think so. That's interesting. I think we scaled quickly and we needed to, and I think the biggest thing was letting go.
Mm.
Because, I went from being a two-person company to a three-person company to then a 15-person company, and then 25 people. And part of that was letting go of how you're running your business as a founder. You're very stuck on everything needs to be executed well and thoughtfully and thoroughly. And I'm a data and analytics person. And so I was looking at all the numbers and the outreach. And so, when you're bringing in other people, they may or may not have the same passion or purpose that you do that's driven you, and there's less at stake for them than you feel as a founder. And so part of that was letting go, trusting that your people, hiring the right people, instilling growth mindset with them, empowering them to do their best, and then understanding what their purpose and their drive is as well was very helpful for me.
Yeah, let's dig into that a little bit more. Just this idea of purpose and drive. I love that that was part of kind of your guiding way as you built your team. We talk a lot about values on the podcast. And so this idea that you have your own personal values and then hoping that you have values alignment where you are. So as a founder, that's really interesting to me to think about. You were founding the company, I would assume, based on some of the things that you think are most important that are your passions as well. And how does that then translate to those company values or however you describe them, the company culture, and then
Mhm.
how the people that you look for as you grow that company?
Yeah, so when I was and I wasn't always purpose driven in my career. When I first finished school, I was in IT, and so it was I learned through schooling and also through my parents that, well, you get a job to make money and to support yourself, and then you grow from there. And so when I built the company I built was based on what I believed in. And what I believed in was in the US, 50% of Americans cannot afford their medications. And to me, coming now from the Canadian mindset, it was appalling to me that people have to make a decision between choosing to get medication for their health or putting food on the table. I had never heard of such a option or decision to be made, and so for me, this is a very relevant situation that we're dealing with right now, and it's not a decision that people should have to decide between. So that was my purpose. Is like people need to get their medications, they need to get healthier. It is better for the families as individuals, but it's also better for the greater good of Americans as a whole, and it's better for the economy. It's paying it forward. So that was my purpose. Was I need to ensure that people are able to get their medications at an affordable cost so they can get healthier and take care of their families. Pretty simple. But you get involved in healthcare and it's not so simple. So now the people we were looking for both people who understood that problem and wanted to deliver on it, but we're also looking at talent. So you can't bypass talent by all means. So we're looking for people who are also driven, motivated, talented, and also want to help the greater good and believe in the purpose of the company itself.
And when you were looking for that right talent, how much of it also has to do with the idea of building and being a part of a startup culture that is VC backed? Like, is that I would imagine that there's, as I think about even the kinds of companies that I've worked for, like huge corporations, is very working there and corporate is very different than working for a founder led company, right? That is VC backed. So how did that play a part in your searching for the right talent?
Yeah, so that's interesting. I think there is an overlay, at least at this point in my career, there is an overlay of being purpose driven, whether you are in corporate or you're in a startup. I think also, not every single person we were seeking to work for a company had to believe in the purpose. In some cases, they just had to be talented.
Mhm.
So, at one point when we were VC funded and we were able to afford people at market value, we were hiring based on their talent and their success to continue to do well. So, our IT team that we developed and built on had healthcare experience. That was important to me, is that they understood the healthcare integration and development life cycle, and how to integrate with different health systems. So that was more critical to me than them coming in saying, "Yes, we believe in getting patients their
Mhm.
medication," because that was my purpose. That's why I built the company. But the core of the foundational technology had to be built through talent. So they didn't have to believe, they were being paid market. I think prior to being paid market value is when you're founding the company, you're doing it because you believe in it. So there's sweat equity involved. So you're giving up on your salary or you're giving up on other areas, of benefits that you may get in corporate. And I think that was probably initially like myself, my co-founder, and our partner that we brought in as CEO. They believed in the product and they believed in the value of what we were offering as a whole. So, but there were some people that joined and they were just excited. They wanted to be part of a startup. They wanted to learn what it took to be in a startup environment, and they had done corporate as well, and they wanted to build something from scratch as well. They wanted to be part of that life cycle. So everyone had their own reasons. They didn't have to believe maybe in the patient side, maybe they believed on the hospital and healthcare system side, maybe they believed on the provider side, maybe they just believed in their own career and
Mhm.
what they could bring to market.
Yeah, I love how you described all of those as different kind of critical experiences to get in your career.
Yeah.
And some of those might be beneficial and optimal to some folks, but not all. And you don't have to have all to be successful there.
Right, right. Absolutely. You don't have to have all of them.
And so as you continued to grow that company, what other things in your leadership did you grow in yourself? Like what changed as you grew with your co-founder, brought in CEO, all of those kinds of things?
Early in my startup days, I probably heavily relied on my capabilities over my soft skills.
Mm.
And I know I am a people person. I do love learning about people, and I love learning what drives them, but I relied heavily on my capabilities more so than my people skills, and I was more focused on bringing in people with the capabilities to, drive us towards success. And at the end of the day, we're all human. We go through different moments in life. You can't control that. You can't change that. And so, as we went through different folks that came into our team, I had to learn to navigate different personalities in different ways. Like when I was going in front of VC, I had to be very numbers focused. When I was going in front of my team, I had to be a bit more softer and understand what their setbacks were, what was holding them back, whether they were overworked or underwhelmed. So I had to understand a lot more on that. On the marketing side, I had to understand more of the psychology of our customers, and what was driving them to make decisions, and what was the value that would be added to them. So every area, I would say, whether it was partnerships, clients, VCs, our team, every single relationship, there was different motivating factors, and there was also different things that were driving them to either succeed or not succeed. And I had to make sure that I was a motivational speaker for everyone that spoke to them on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. As you continue to grow your career, it seems like a lot of the things that you have described just in our short conversation so far have been very experience based.
Mhm.
You're getting experience, you're doing new things, you're learning, you're growing. What other ways have you accelerated your career or other things, learning from others, mentors, coaches, those kinds of things? How have you supported yourself with your own development beyond, getting these critical experiences? What has worked for you?
I read a lot. I make sure I do invest in self-development on a regular basis, and so some of that has been through reading, understanding what's going on in the industry, top critical factors that are shaping our economy. I also invest in courses, so I take courses regularly. I make sure that I'm upskilling on a regular basis. And then it's just networking is the people who you are around. You learn a lot. I would say you learn the most actually by the people that you surround yourself with. So learning from their experiences and coming forward with a curiosity mindset and a growth mindset. I think it's easy at some point. I've been in my career 25 years, and I think it's easy sometimes to just rely on your experience. But things have changed drastically over the last decade, let alone the last 25 years. So understanding how our culture is changing, how people are changing, how motivating factors are changing is also critical.
If there was a piece of advice you could give early career Goulet, like, what would that be?
So I know it's okay. So lately I've heard a lot over the last couple of years is start saying no.
Yeah, let's talk
I've
about
heard that a
that.
lot
Yeah.
recently is, start saying no for your mental health sake, for setting boundaries and for all that. I was the opposite. I said yes to everything. I
Mm,
said yes to every single opportunity I could because I didn't know where that would lead me to. And I'm so glad I did. If I
yeah.
didn't do that, I wouldn't have met the people I met along the way. And I wouldn't have had the opportunities that I had along the way. Now, I think as you get older and wiser and more experienced and you understand what you want to do, you can start saying no to certain things. But I still try to remind myself that sometimes I want to say no and I'll just say yes anyways. So I actually think the opposite is instead of saying no a lot is say yes more.
Okay, yeah, I love that advice, especially for early career. Are there hard no's? Do you have hard boundaries? What do you say no to that you're excited about? That's a good no.
I do say no to things. I will say no. I will have a hard line no if it's not aligned to something that is based on my goals and radar right now. So if I have something that I need to accomplish over the next 3 months or 6 months, I will say no to specific things. So I try to check in with myself on a regular basis to see where am I going
Mhm.
and am I still on the path of where I need to be going? And if there is something that comes along my way that's is this a distraction or is this going to be growth? Then I will say no. If it's a distraction, it's a no. If it's growth, then it's a yes.
Is that, a process that's pretty clear to you, like the distraction versus the growth opportunity?
Not always. I think there's some grays in there. Sometimes you don't know what's a distraction. Sometimes you don't know what's a growth. So I think it's just sometimes you just have to make a decision in the moment. That's tough because I think it's been a while. I can't think of anything right now that I can think of where it's a distraction. Most opportunities that have come, I look at them as growth opportunities, but then there are certain times where I just say, I just cannot. This is not in the scope of my work. This is not the scope of my goals right now. This is not the scope of my purpose right now. So I'm going to have to say no.
My award-winning book, Values First: How Knowing Your Core Beliefs Can Get You the Life and Career You Want, is now available in audiobook. Since the book released just last year, the biggest question that I've gotten from readers is it available in audiobook? In this book, you'll get to hear my most pivotal career stories and some of the successes of my clients as you learn about the Values First framework and how you can take action on your life and career. The audiobook is narrated by me, so if you love this podcast, you'll love the audiobook. Values First: How Knowing Your Core Beliefs Can Get You the Life and Career You Want is now available on Audible and iTunes. So let's talk about going then back into corporate. What was that decision like for you? And what was your kind of thought process on what you wanted to give you that growth to be in aligned with your goals? What was that process like?
Yeah. So when I left my startup, I was thinking that I would just take some time off.
Mhm.
And at the time, Salesforce had come forward, and there was a lot of investment in healthcare and in analytics, data and analytics. And that's where I've kind of focused the last 15 years of my career. So that became very exciting to me, is realizing that here I was, one person or two people or three people, this tiny little puddle of group of people trying to make big changes in the industry, and it was just very, very hard. It felt like swimming against stream, or you're rowing against the stream. And so when the opportunity came up with Salesforce, just seeing how much of an investment that Salesforce was making in the economy and in the industry when it came to the technology and the advances, I became extremely excited. I said, like, I've been trying to make advances in some of this space on my own, and here they are. They've put in millions of dollars in this, and they're so far ahead. And so I saw that as a great opportunity to focus on what I'm good at, as opposed to looking at it from I'm doing an entrepreneurial. I think being an entrepreneur is glamorized, to be honest. It's overly glamorized in that you think like you're your own boss, you're making waves, you can make decisions. You're not. You're still held back by regulations, you're still held back by lack of funding. You're a smaller group of people, so you have to do a lot more work to make an impact. And so, on the corporate side, I was excited that I was able to actually still make an impact, and then I had the support of a larger group of people that were investing in this.
Yeah, I love what you just said. Like sometimes there is a lot of glamour associated with the entrepreneurship journey. And sometimes corporate experience is minimized, but at a big company, you can get a lot done with,
That's
like you
right.
said, with a ton of dollars behind it, and sometimes even faster, depending on
Yes.
what it is and the goals and the mission of the organization. And so yeah, I love that perspective. So what have you liked most then about being back in corporate? What's the most exciting thing right now?
I think the biggest exciting thing for me was I'm able to focus on my expertise
Mm.
as opposed to focus on my weaknesses or trying to grow from the weaknesses. So, as I mentioned, like, I didn't know marketing so well, so I had to really spend a good 16, 17 hours a day pivoting between marketing, operations, raising capital, and then technology and software development and managing clients. Whereas now I can focus all of my energy on what I'm actually good at and knowledgeable about. And then the weakness areas are probably maybe 10 or 15%, maybe, is where I can learn and grow from. There's always weaknesses and there's always growth opportunities. But when you're an entrepreneur, it feels like at the time, like everything is a weakness and you have to grow so much and you have to put in a lot more effort in those areas where you may not be good at and it may take years, and especially in healthcare, specifically in healthcare and finance, it could take years for you to make steps forward. So that's the thing I think I was the most excited about in corporate.
Yeah, it feels like your expertise had to be diversified. And so you were spread in a very broad way. And now you're able to focus within your area of expertise and more deeply, I would imagine.
Yeah, you can dig in a lot deeper. Thank you for saying that. Yeah. So for example, like with my expertise right now, when I work with my customers, I can dig in a lot deeper with them on their problems and figure out, where their decisions and why their decisions are made a certain way and understand how to help them better. Where sometimes, you're spread so thin as an entrepreneur, you're trying to solve problems, but money talks. So at the end of the day, investors still need to be, they want to see that their investment is going in the right area, so you still have to make sure you're navigating that as well.
What are you excited about now from the leadership front? Are you leading a team? What does that look like? And
At the moment, I don't have a team that I'm leading, so I work with my customers and partners, and I collaborate at the moment, and so that's what I'm doing right now. But what I'm excited about is I'm excited about where we're headed towards in our tech space. So I think AI and machine learning has gained a lot of momentum now, and it's gained a lot more traction and people are understanding it much more. And so they're a lot more intentional about data. I mean, AI and machine learning is not new. It's been around since the 60s and the 70s. But because now a lot more people are focused on it and corporations are focused on it, they're thinking through how to address their needs a lot more specifically and intentionally. So I'm really excited about that.
well, I just want to thank you so much for spending time with us today, walking through your experience, your journey through corporate entrepreneurship and back. Lots of really great nuggets to think through. And I know lots too that have similar struggles and also similar excitement. So it's really great to hear from your perspective. What's the best way for us to connect with you?
LinkedIn is the best way to connect with me. I think you have my profile
I
on there.
do.
So
I
yeah, so
do.
that's the best way to connect with me. I post on there pretty frequently, and I also answer messages there as
Awesome.
well.
We'll ensure that that is in the show notes of our podcast episode. So thank you so much for sharing this space with us today.
Thank you for having me.
I want to thank you so much for listening to the You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. If you are enjoying this content, please remember to rate and review on Apple Podcasts. By leaving a review, you are helping others find this content. We will be featuring 5-star reviews on air in upcoming episodes. Editing and support for the podcast is done by S&E Podcast Management. To get more tips and tools to help you live a life guided by your values, go to thecatchgroup.com. Keep your boundaries and take care.